It's time to step my game up, people. Yeah, that's right. I've been shooting YouTube videos now and creating content for a handful of months. Again, started probably back in the September-October time period. I don't exactly remember when, but it was in the fourth quarter of 2019. That I do know. And when I started off with this, which is the Google Pixel 2, which at the time was the industry best camera that you can get. And I laugh when I look at the quality of my videos and how they've come along since I started, but it's extremely common for YouTubers to start simply by using a cell phone. Listen, I want to say this right now. If you are someone who's interested in getting into creating content for YouTube, you have a cell phone in your hands, you can shoot content. So many of these other huge YouTube channels started off with a person with a cell phone and they would just shoot the video and then go with it. They didn't have these big, ridiculous $1,000 cameras. They didn't have any of that. They just had a cell phone. And even now, I'm shooting on an iPhone 11. This is currently being shot on my iPhone 11, and I have no shame in that. The iPhone 11 camera is fantastic. It can shoot in 4K, which I do believe I have that setting on now. It does make the files gigantic, so watch your cloud storage amount. But the important thing to understand is, don't wait for this perfect vlogging camera, and don't take this as that video. This is not the video telling you this is the camera you should get. No, it is not that. It is not that. This video is simply me telling you about my journey to the new vlogging camera that I did get this week. So let's get it started right now. That being said, I want to start off by pointing out I was using a cell phone, and I was happily using a cell phone. I have no issue with shooting on a cell phone. I am still, currently right now, shooting on a cell phone. I have no issue with that. My problem became a few things. One, when I would show up to meet with somebody, if I wanted to have my camera out to record, I would have to use my cell phone with this little tripod device I use, which I'll try to show you before the end of the video. But what I'm trying to point out is the professional aspect of it just wasn't there. They wouldn't take it serious. So that was A, I wanted to be taken more serious as a content creator. And B, the other thing is when I'm shooting and I get a phone call, it shuts the camera down and I could be mid-sentence and all of a sudden a phone call come in and I just completely lose everything. And it's just, the rage monster comes out inside me. I just want to lose my mind. I want to pick stuff up and smash it. But at the same time, I thrive on phone calls. But now, switching to a camera, phone calls coming in, I can easily just send that to voicemail, do the auto reply text feature, and keep the gravy train rolling, shooting these videos. So, before I even get into all of the specs and why I chose what I chose, I'm just going to get right to the point. The camera that I picked up this week and went with, the Canon M50, the EOS M50. And I'm gonna show you the camera, we're gonna look at the outside of it, and then I'm gonna walk you through the 6 cameras that I was comparing to come to the decision of getting the M50, because I went through all the numbers and I looked at all that kind of stuff. I even looked at what other vloggers were using and what they were saying, found essentially 6 cameras that seemed to be the most popular, and landed on the M50. So let's go ahead and start with the actual camera itself. Now, sorry everybody, I've already taken it out of the box. So as far as you seeing a formal unboxing, not gonna happen, not really necessary. Canons all come similarly packaged. The lens is in one spot. They both have caps on them. You take that off, click it into place, and you're good to go. But the camera itself, the body of the camera, as you can see, is very similar to any other Canon camera. It has that classic camera look that you're looking for. It's an absolutely beautiful camera. As you tilt up, you can see all the different options here from a photography and videography setting. Here's your record button for taking video. Up here you have your jack for a microphone, which obviously would take away from the flash, but when you're shooting video, you don't need to do that anyway. This is the flash right here, much smaller in comparison to some of the bigger Canons that are out there. This is a cool feature. So Here's the lens itself. It's very solid in this state. In order to get the camera to work, you have this little latch here. You pick it up and you turn the camera, which basically you could turn the camera on, but it's unusable until you do this. And then when you're packaging it up, if you want to go somewhere, you would lift that back up and lock it in place, making it very sturdy and compact for when you're taking it out with you or putting it into a bag. HDMI ports and out ports here. Down here is where you put the battery and the memory card, which let's go ahead and do that now. Lock and load. Just bought a new memory card. Now I will say this, if you're just getting into videography and you were using a camera previously that had a memory disk on it, understand you're gonna need a bigger memory disk. So we were using a memory disk on this camera that's only 4 gigabytes. Let me tell you right now, you're gonna fill up 4 gigabytes while you're filming. You need at least 64 gigs, and you might even need a second disk. Why did they make this packaging so ridiculous?
Five hours later.
And then the other thing I'm going to show you before we get into this is here is the screen. Now check this out. The screen folds out and can turn. Now as a vlogger, you want some kind of a way to see yourself as you're filming, because a bunch of reasons. First off, you want to be able to see yourself to know what you're looking like on camera. But let's say you're interviewing somebody, you want to be able to look over and just make sure that they're still in frame and they're still focused on. So this coming out to the side. Now, one of the things I love is on older models of Canon, this is the way it comes with the screen out like that. With it being in the variable tilt, you can actually close it off and it have a back to protect the screen. So again, and we'll talk about this later on, from a functionality standpoint, you can toss this camera in your bag and not worry about it getting beat up. The camera comes with a strap. One of the things I love about it, it's much thinner than some of the older Canon straps. So here is my Canon Rebel XSI. Now this camera is straight photography and it's fantastic. It's an SLR, not a DSLR. And this does have the autofocus and the stabilization on it. It's the pictures that come off of this camera are great. But check out the size of this strap. It is literally double the size of the new strap. Now, that could just be bigger camera, heavier, but I just think maybe Canon streamlining and coming up with, thinner, more modern band or straps for you to put on your camera. So now that we've gone ahead and gone over the camera specs, let's use the camera. So we're gonna go from this to this. As you can see, a big difference in quality of shot. Now, again, the shot on the iPhone was perfectly fine. Crisp, clear, in focus, the whole 9 yards. But there's something about this, even just looking at the viewfinder, the screen over here on the right of the camera, even just looking at that, it looks so crystal clear that it's just unbelievable. So now that we have it set up and we're filming with it, let's go ahead and go into the 6 different cameras so you can see why. So you can see why I landed on the Canon M50. Now, that being said, I basically looked at 10 different variables to decide what camera I was going to go with from a vlogging standpoint. And here are the different variables. First, weight and size. Second, video quality. Third, sound. Fourth, price. Fifth, functionality. Sixth, type. 7, monitor. 8, touch, whether it was touchscreen or not. 9, wireless. And 10, the look. And I'm not going to do them in that order. In fact, I'm going to change up the order right now. All right. So we are going to start off with the Olympus OMD EM5 Mark III. Now, Mark III is a very popular term in cameras. You're going to see the next camera is a Mark III. And the first metric we're going to look at is the weight of the camera. Now, in vlogging, you're either going to have a setup like this where it's on a tripod or some type of a device to hold it in place. In this case, I use a Gorilla tripod, which is very popular amongst vloggers because it could grab onto everything and, you know, form, so you could put it on like a railing and take city skyline shot for a little bit. You can do a lot with a Gorilla tripod. So a lot of vloggers use those. Now, this camera, the Olympus OEMD EM5 Mark III, is only 14 ounces, and that is basically the weight I was looking for in a camera. So if you have it clamped on somewhere with a Gorilla tripod, not a big deal. But let's say you're holding it out in front of you like this. For example, Casey Neistat rides a skateboard, drinks a drink, and holds a Gorilla tripod with a Canon 70, 80, or 90D on his arm like this as he's skateboarding around. That's taxing on your arm and shoulder as you're holding it out, especially if you're doing like a long tutorial or something and you're in nature and you're walking around. I was looking for a camera that would be lighter than that. So the Olympus fell into that category. Being 14 ounces, it's the same weight as the Canon M50, so it shot to the top. As I went through some of the other metrics, the type is mirrorless. Now, being mirrorless, it's a little bit lighter than a lot of other cameras. Same thing with the Canon and the Sony, which you'll hear about in a minute. As far as the sound goes, it's on board only. And from what I read about it online, there is no mic jack. There is no availability. You would have to record your sound on another device and then layer it in production, which I've tried to do a few times. It's extremely frustrating. Extremely frustrating. Let's talk about the monitor. It is a 3-inch vari-angle monitor, which is great. And I believe it even comes out to the side, which is a high, and we'll talk about that in a second when we get to the Sony, but coming out to the side, what put it sort of towards the top. That monitor is in fact a touchscreen, which I wanted new technology. I wanted to be able to make adjustments on the monitor itself so that I don't have to go around to the camera or go up to the dials. I can make changes as I'm going and as I'm filming. From a functionality standpoint, the issue that I had with it is that the hand grip area, from what I was reading, is small. Now, I've gone and looked at pictures, and I don't understand why some of these guys are saying that the hand grip area is small. I have seen other cameras with smaller hand grip areas. Good example of that is the Sony A6400, which came in second for me. The Olympus, from what I've seen in pictures, looks perfectly fine. Looks like a perfectly, you know, it looks like it has a lot of surface area for you to hold on to. But according to a couple of the blogs I read, the surface area is small and there's not a lot of great grip on the camera itself. From a wireless perspective, it's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, so that's fantastic. I wanted wireless capabilities. And before we talk about price, let's talk about look. There's something about the look of the Olympus that was just kind of plain Jane to me. Now, it does, here's the thing, does it look professional? Yes, it looks very professional. There's a lot going on, it looks very busy, but there's just something about it I just was not a fan. It did not stand out to me as being something that that said, oh, here's a great camera, here's, you know, like, it just, look at it for yourself. You decide for yourself. I didn't like the look of the camera myself. And I know talking about the look and the appearance and the aesthetics of a camera is completely superficial, but when you're talking about the price tag, which is $999, and hear that again, this camera with no mic jack, it being kind of plain Jane, and me reading that the surface area is kind of smaller, at $999, when you see all the other options that you have, they came off almost immediately. I mean, they were going to the top in the beginning, and then as I read more about it, they came off pretty stinking fast. Let's talk now about the Canon Powershot G7 Mark III. Now, this is an extremely popular camera with vloggers, but I think it's popular as a secondary camera and definitely not a primary. Let me explain why. Its weight, fantastic. It weighed in at 10 ounces, 4 ounces less than everything else. The type of camera that it is called a compact camera. From a sound perspective, there is a mic jack on it and an onboard. Now, I've seen YouTubers using this camera, and the onboard mic is great, but it definitely, when you're outside and you're in an external environment, having a mic jack is going to be important. But the kicker there is you can't put a mic rig on top of it. See, and we're going to jump to the look. The look of this camera reminds me of one of the first cameras I ever had. when your parents would go out and buy you a Sony little handheld point and shoot. That's exactly what this camera is, except a much higher quality camera. Now, one of the big things here is the monitor. It is a 3-inch, same size as all the other ones, very tilt, and it tilts up. So you can't physically, you already don't want to put a mic rig on this thing, but physically you can't, because if you want to be in front of the camera and you want to have that thing flipped up, the mic rig would get in the way. So you're talking about using some type of a mic, whether it's a Bluetooth mic or something along those lines, but you're going to want a mic for this thing. Since we talked about the monitor, I'll point out that the monitor is a touchscreen. From a functionality standpoint, there's a lot of good grip space. It's very simple to use. It's a camera that you wouldn't feel bad about just tossing in your carry-on and hopping on a plane. Like, you're not worried about it getting damaged. It's a very solid camera. Wireless components, it's Wi-Fi. It does not have Bluetooth though. It also does not have NFC. And the look, I mean, honestly, the look is fantastic. If I had the money, I might get this as a secondary camera to take with me just kind of out into environments, just to take some additional scenes or catch things as they're going on. But it's a Canon. It's a phenomenal camera. Here's the kicker though. The price for the G7 Mark III, $750. Now, look at that camera. Look at the M50. Look at the 90D. And tell me that you would be spending, as your main vlogging camera, $750 on this smaller model. Now, again, I wanted something that looks professional. This looks like an old school point and shoot camera. It's great. It's phenomenal. It takes amazing photography and amazing video. It does all that stuff. But I wanted something that said professionalism. So take that mixed with the fact that the monitor tilted up, and I definitely wanted a side tilt, and the price, and the G7 Mark III came off the list, was the next one off the list after the Olympus. Now let's talk about the camera that came in second place, the Sony A6400. And when you see this, it is so close to the Canon M50. It came down to two reasons why I didn't go with the Sony. Now, first off, it weighs in at the exact same 14 ounce that the Canon M50 does. It shoots in 4K and 1080p, which, by the way, all of these cameras shoot in 4K and 1080p. The thing I want to point out with the Sony is the 4K is fantastic, and you don't have the same crop effect that you have on a Canon M50, which we'll talk about when we get there. The Sony A6400 is also a mirrorless camera, which was something I was looking for. Let's talk about the sound. It has both a mic jack and an onboard and a spot for you to rig a mic up to. So I was a big fan of that aspect. And now let's talk about the monitor, because this was one of the two reasons this camera lost. It's a 3-inch monitor. It is fully touch, but it flips up. If you're a vlogger, you know there's two things you take into account on every video: sound, video quality. You're getting the video quality, but you want to be able to see yourself while you're doing your vlog, while you're talking about what you're talking about. You want to be able to make corrections by looking at the monitor. If the monitor is flipped up and your microphone is on top, guess what you can't do? You can't see yourself. The mic is in the way. Why would you put the monitor flipping up, Sony? You market this as a vlogging camera, but vloggers can't see themselves. It just doesn't make any sense. Gosh. Let's bring it around. Let's bring it down, Kev. Calm it down. Let's talk about wireless. It has Wi-Fi, NFC, and Bluetooth. It has all three, which is fantastic. It can connect to your cell phone and other devices nearby. You know, that was something I was looking for, connectivity. The look, it was kind of boxy. It was not as attractive. It didn't have the nice rounded finished edges that the Canon does, and even the Olympus and some of the other cameras. But that didn't really take away from whether or not I was willing to get the camera. The reason this one lost came down to functionality. Now, let me start with the positive. On the functionality side, there's more video features on the Sony A6400 than there was on the Canon M50. The Canon 90D, though, crushed both of them, but it did have more video features. Now, all that to be said, it had no image stabilization on board. Think about that. No image stabilization on board. So you have to do all of that in production, which for me was an issue, was not a fan. Now, take into account the price at $898. It's about $100 more than the Canon M50. So here's the differences, and this is what it came down to. Now, while the 4K was better on the Sony A6400 than it was on the Canon M50, I'm willing to shoot in 1080p. I'm cool with that. Smaller file sizes and everything else, I'm good with that. But no image stabilization, the screen tilting up, I looked at that and said, why would I pay more money for things that are more important to me? The things that are more important to me is the monitor being on the side and making sure that the video quality is fantastic and that the sound is going to be fantastic. I can now see myself have a mic rig on, which I don't have yet. Mic is coming soon. But I can see myself have the mic rig on, and I know that the quality is going to be fantastic. 1080p is perfectly fine. And we'll talk about that more when we get to the Canon M50. So, because of no image stabilization and the monitor tilting up, the Sony A6400 took a nosedive for me. The next camera I looked at was the GoPro Hero 8. Now, I've always thought about GoPro as a phenomenal device. While surfing, I have helped many people look for their GoPros in the ocean. We would find them, bring them up, and the thing is still kicking and working fine. That's fantastic. The weight of a GoPro is only 4 ounces. So from a perspective of holding it on a tripod or on your hand and walking, you're not even going to feel that thing in your arm. 4 ounces? It's the tiniest thing ever. The image quality, it always shoots in 4K. Always. That's awesome. You know your images, your video is going to come out amazing. The type of camera is classified as an action camera. So it not necessarily mirrorless. It's just a digital action camera, and it is the quality of the video is very nice. From a sound perspective, you have an onboard mic. Now, while there's no native mic plug-in port, there is a port that you could buy a dongle to hook into to hook up to an external mic. So you do have the ability, if you're willing to carry around an additional accessory, but there's no mic rig on the top. There's no spot to hook a mic rig up to on the top of the camera. So you're going to be limited from that perspective. Now the monitor, there's a 2-inch monitor on the back that is a touchscreen. Now, you may not be able to tell, these are some big hands right here, okay? A 2-inch monitor on the back of a camera, what am I touching on there? I'm touching the whole friggin' screen. And the monitor is fixed. It doesn't flip out, doesn't flip up. You can't see yourself. So you have to set yourself up and hope you or the person you're interviewing or whatever is always in frame. You can't take a look and make sure that you're still in frame. And by the way, I have been in times where I'd be interviewing someone and I'd be here and they'd be next to me and then they would lean back or myself and now we're out of the camera. Being able to look up and see, you could say, hey, stop, come back in, let's re-ask the question. You can lose a whole interview by not being able to see what's going on. Trust me. As far as wireless goes, it's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. From a functionality standpoint, it is lightweight, so that's fantastic. It's also rugged, which goes to the look of the camera. It's a very rugged camera, so again, you could toss it right into your bag and go. You don't have to worry about putting it into a separate bag or something to protect it. You feel very confident in just tossing this thing in your bag and going. But my issue with it from a functionality standpoint is the image quality in low light situations, not as great. And this, again, GoPro, if you're watching this and you're getting mad at me, I have read this on more than one, I've read it on at least 5 blogs when I looked up information on the Hero 8. I wanted it because your price is awesome and always shooting in 4K is fantastic, but the fact that in a low light situation, I'm not always going to be in this bright with light rigs and everything. I'm not always going to be in this situation. So I'm going to need something that is versatile and that I can make adjustments to get better shots in low light. Here's the kicker. The reason I was interested in it. The GoPro Hero 8 comes in at $329. I think the GoPro Hero 8 is a fantastic camera as a secondary vlogging camera. Look, you're going into the city and you just need to get shots of traffic going by a museum or something along those lines. This is going to be the camera for that. You're going to be able to get all of that. You know, just straight keeping it on you at all times and going around as you're talking with people. This is a great camera for that. But an all-the-time vlogging camera, it lost for me. All right, now let's go into the mecca of vlogging cameras. Now, I've talked about Casey Neistat before, talk about him again. Whenever they interview him and say, what kind of camera you use, he would say things like 70D, 80D. Now they have the Canon 90D. Now the 90D is a big boy. So I had showed you before, this is my SLR camera that we use just for straight photography here in the household when we're taking pictures of our kids. In comparison to the M50, this is a big boy. This weighs in at 24 ounces. It's 10 ounces heavier. If this was on a tripod holding out, this would become cumbersome after a while. Whereas the M50 being 10 ounces lighter, you're gonna get more time in this mode than you would with something like this. The weight of this Rebel XSI is the same as the 90D at 24 ounces. That being said, I still would love to get the 90D, so one day I will be getting it. The video quality on the 90D, 4K, and it's excellent 4K. You don't have the crop issue that you do on the M50. It's just the 4K is fantastic on the 90D. The 90D is a DSLR. That's the type of camera that it is. It's not mirrorless. It's just a DSLR. It is great. As far as sound goes, on the 90D, you have a mic jack and an onboard, and there's a spot for you to rig up your mic on the top. Again, this is the classic camera for a lot of vloggers, but you'll see why I didn't go with this one. Let's talk about the monitor. It is a 3.2-inch variable tilt monitor, and it does tilt out to the side. It doesn't go up, it goes to the side. So Canon is definitely putting all their eggs in the tilt out to the side basket, and I'm loving every second of it. Yes, am I a Canon snob? Of course I am, because I've always had Canon and they've never done me wrong. I did have Nikon for a little bit, but you'll see Nikon's not even on this list because I'm bringing this thing into a landing in a second. It is a touchscreen, so you can make all your adjustments right on the screen, and the adjustments, you have so many more adjustments on the 90D. Now on the M50, Canon left out a lot of adjustments and a lot of video settings that are on the Canon 90D. And when you look at the price difference, it's understanding. I'm not too mad about it. It is both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. However, it is not NFC. It does not connect to mobile devices nearby. From a functionality point, I have two issues. First off, three issues. First off, size. It's bigger. From a straight just holding it out, it's heavier. But there were two other issues I had with this camera, which is why I did not invest the money in it right now. First off, it does not have dual pixel autofocus. Again, me being not a professional, I need to make sure that I'm always in focus. One of the things that the M50 does is there's a little square over my face right now. It is following me around and staying focused on me and not catching something in the background. There's nothing more frustrating than if you do something like this to a camera and then it focuses in on that simply because it's in the forefront. You can see on the M50 right now, I'm still focused on. It's awesome. Also, with the dual pixel, let's say I'm taking video outside or I'm at my kid's football game and they're running by. It will be smoother on the M50 simply because the dual pixel autofocus picks up fast moving objects better than a camera that does not have that. It also does not come with autofocus enabled on the 90D. Now that I did find unbelievable, but if you watch a lot of vloggers, they're constantly adjusting their lens. Those are the guys that are using that 90D. That was a big issue to me for the cost. So let's talk about the cost. The cost of the 90D comes in at a whopping $1,200. It's a big bite out of an apple. And if I'm being straight up with you, the reason I didn't go with the 90D is the cost. Because had it been $700, $800, even $900, I probably would have spent the money to get it just because if you can learn how to use it, it is a fantastic camera. And the image quality and the sound quality and everything about it is excellent, excellent, excellent. Aesthetically, it looks beautiful. It's that classic Canon look, and you will look professional no matter where you are with that camera. So let's now talk about the camera that I went with, the M50. And why did I go with it? I'm going to tell you. So first off, weighing in at 14 ounces, lightweight. I'm not nervous about holding it out. I'm not nervous about carrying it for a long stretch of time. At 14 ounces, it's super lightweight. It shoots in both 4K and 1080. I'm sighing as I'm saying this because this was my struggle point. I wanted to shoot in 4K. I wanted to be kind of the next level up, but I didn't want to make it mandatory. If you're creating content for YouTube or something along those lines, you don't need 4K. 1080 is perfectly fine. The issue with 4K is sitting here in my office setting, if I were to put the 4K on right now, you know what, can we do it? So I just switched to 4K and I've not moved. You can see that it has cropped in much tighter onto me, which is not what I really wanted. So I'm gonna switch it back to 1080. So again, we can see the difference. Also at 4K, the file size is much larger. I'm just gonna make you sit in this with this super cropped in image of me. But the file size is much larger when you're transferring over. So I was perfectly fine with shooting in 1080. Let's talk about sound. It has both a mic jack, which I showed you on the side of the camera, as well as an onboard microphone, which currently I'm using the onboard microphone. Long term, I am going to invest in a microphone for the top of the camera that's going to record everything. Now, Canon does sell, this is the box mine came in, they do sell one where the box is about yay high and yay big, which is everything set up in one. Now, my issue with it was that the onboard mic, while it was a Rode mic and it was a great mic, the whole rig of the mic, the everything that holds the mic was pink. And I'm sorry, I'm not wanting a pink rig for my mic. It's not what I want. I want to stay kind of low key with my videography equipment, so I just wanted it to be in black. The type of camera that the Canon M50 is mirrorless, makes it lighter, image quality is great, but it is a mirrorless camera. The big selling point for me was the variable 3-inch touchscreen that flips out to the side. I love it. Having been used to shooting on a cell phone that is looking at me so I could see the screen the whole entire time, having this now, I feel right at home. I don't feel out of place at all. As far as wireless capabilities go, this thing's got it all. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and NFC. So if you're looking for that camera that is just going to be able to do it all, connect to everything, this is going to be the one you're looking for. From a functionality standpoint, it has both dual pixel autofocus as well as just autofocus in general, and it's extremely lightweight. So from a functionality standpoint, if you're not somebody who's a professional, this camera is so friendly to you, it'll blow your mind. Last but not least, the look of the camera, and then we'll talk about the price. The look of the camera is that classic camera look. It just looks like the little brother of the Rebels or the 90Ds. It's just a smaller camera, but it looks fantastic. To come back to functionality, I don't want to say rugged, but you're not going to be worried about putting this camera, and I talked about this before, everything is protected on the camera. The screen is protected by flipping it in, so you have the outside shell on it. The lens is protected by being able to lock and close, so you're not worried about it just getting knocked. It's just a great camera. It's extremely solid, and I'm going to have a lot of fun with this camera. It's fantastic. So let me hit you with the price. It is currently, right now, on sale, but it probably won't be for long, but it's on sale for $599. So if you heard, all of these cameras that I put on my little chart here all have very similar things. This is the only one that comes in at $600 outside of the GoPro, which was obviously lower. All of these other cameras were more expensive and had less features, or features that I didn't want, than this one had. So for me, and again, I'm not saying that this is right for you, but for me, the M50 was the camera to go with after I did my homework. So let me throw a little disclaimer in here, because I feel like it's important that I do. I am not a videographer. I'm not a photographer. I've taken some classes on photography, but that was very long. That was 20 years ago. Things have changed, people. When I was taking photography classes, that's when you had to develop your own film in photography class. Now you just put it on your computer and you doctor it up in Photoshop. Things have changed a lot. So take everything I say right now with a grain of salt. All of you professionals out there, try not to chop my head off as a result of anything I've said. I just want you to understand, I am not a professional videographer or photographer. So guys, that's it. That's all I got today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you saw why I liked it. If you are interested in talking more about it, DM me on Twitter. Otherwise, comment below if I missed a camera, if there was a camera that you think I should have looked at in my searching for this beautiful new device, then I want you to comment below and tell me what it is. This is community, people, so let's talk. Small business owners, remember, be small, think big, let's go. Have a great day, everyone.